Kenya and many African countries risk losing all elephants in the next 10 years if nothing is done to control the poaching menace. Many elephants are being killed at an alarming rate, posing a risk of their extinction by 2023. Now, it is this that inspired Jim Nyamu, a Kenyan wildlife conservationist, to embark on a 500-kilometer trek from Kenya's capital, Nairobi, to the coastal city of Mombasa to create awareness about wildlife conservation. After the grueling 14-day walk, Nyamu continued his walk, and over a 50-day period, he managed to walk through various towns in the country. By the end of 2013, the conservationist had clocked 3,186 kilometers on the road in Kenya and abroad. The 37-year-old finished the year in the U.S., where he clocked 910 kilometers from Boston to Washington, D.C. between September and October. Now, this year, he plans to trek over 5,000 kilometers around the globe, educating communities on the atrocities and irreversible damage associated with killing elephants for their ivory. Let's get more now from Jim Nyamu himself. He's joining us here in studio, the Executive Director of Elephant Neighbors Center. Jim, thank you and welcome to Africa Live. Now, why did you embark on this project?
Okay, thank you so much. This is my 17th year studying elephants in the country. And I've also been involved in the 20 countries in Africa. I am a scientist by profession, and I decided now to stop doing much of the science work, because I learned that there is a disconnect between us scientists and our communities. And for instance, in our country, which we have seen a tremendous change from 1979, when the country had 167,000 elephants, that was left to 16,000 in 1989. We've seen the population increasing from 1989. At the moment now, we are now seeing decrease from the 2011. I decided I will not sit down and do the science.
Right.
Looking at the over 70% of our population, they are outside the communities. That means we need communities on board who can support KWS and the government on how they can manage these species.
You've been to about 20 countries, as you mentioned there. Has your trek, though, proved fruitful? Has it had any fruit?
I know every country has a different management in the wildlife, particularly the Kenya and Tanzania. I would say, for instance, in Kenya, where I've managed to walk over 3,000 kilometers now, I have seen a couple of improvements, like when I started my first walk from Mombasa. By that time, it was a bit silent. But when I did the second one, I saw the first lady joining me in the trek. And I've also seen other former ministers and members of parliament coming on board. I've also seen the government improving. We suggested 15 years jail or 3 million, but we have seen them now tapping up now to 20 million and life in prison.
All right.
I've not seen other countries doing much, particularly like the affected Eastern African countries. We have not done so much, but I have seen of late, Tanzania, they are doing much now. They have improved, and they came up with the 15 years jail, which is not only just to be taken in, but it was like economic sabotage.
All right. You talk about Kenya, though, having involved government officials there, Kenya's First Lady, but not much having happened elsewhere in Africa. Are you satisfied, though, that in general, African governments, being aware of the poaching menace, that they are doing enough to ensure that this menace is finally eradicated at some stage?
One, I would say that we have 28 countries that come together. We call ourselves African Elephant Coalition. But of late, I've seen few countries like our neighbor country, Tanzania and Uganda, they have refused to join. Now, looking at even these other 28 countries, we have not been able to, one, appreciate our stockpile, what we have. We have not been able even to talk about poaching. We keep on blaming the management and the Chinese. But the poaching is happening in Africa, is not happening in Chinese. What are we doing, we as African countries? One, my experience so far, if I may borrow much from Kenya, there is a big disconnect between the local communities and the management. What
more should we be doing?
What more should be done is awareness, first of all, awareness, like go to these people asking in this country how many elephants we have. People talk of millions and millions, but people don't even know how many we have. And looking at the seriousness is, if you're able to create awareness like what I'm doing, by engaging local people, discuss with them that we are the only people who can save this country, not the Kenya Wildlife Service.
All right, Jim Nyamu will leave it there. Executive Director, Elephant Neighbors Center, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live.